When I was 8 years old, my parents treated me badly. They yelled at me, kicked me out of the house, and always favored my younger brother. I felt like I didn't belong. I wandered the streets, scared and alone, until a kind woman, my Aunt Nancy, found me and took me in. 15 years later, I became successful. When my parents came back into my life, I was ready to handle things differently. I grew up in a wealthy family in Austin, Texas. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, were successful lawyers who cared a lot about their status. They adored my brother Max because he did well in school, but no matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations. I always felt neglected, but things started to change when I turned to my Aunt Nancy for help. My name is Lily. When I was 8, I came home from school nervous about my test results. I had studied hard, but I didn't get the grade my parents wanted. That night, I overheard them arguing. "She's a disappointment," my mom said. "We've given her everything, and this is what we get?" I stood frozen outside my room, holding back tears. I wanted to yell, but I couldn't. Later, they confronted me. "Lily, you need to do better, or you'll have to leave," my dad said coldly. "Where will I go?" I asked, feeling terrified. "Figure it out," he replied. I had no choice. I packed a small bag and left. I didn't know where to go, but I ended up wandering the streets of Austin, feeling lost and scared. Just when I thought I had nowhere left to turn, I saw my Aunt Nancy. "Lily, what are you doing here?" she asked, worried. I didn't know where else to go," I said, my voice shaking. Without hesitation, she gave me a hug. "Come with me, you're safe now." Aunt Nancy was 40, a restaurant manager with a kind heart. She always believed in me. I followed her to her small apartment, where I began to feel hope again. She made me a warm bowl of soup and told me I could stay with her for as long as I needed. Living with Nancy changed my life. She encouraged me, telling me I was smart and could do anything. With her support, I began to do well in school. Meanwhile, Max was struggling with our parents' pressure. One day, I found him sitting on the steps of our old house, playing his guitar. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm just thinking," he said. "Mom and Dad want me to be a lawyer like them, but I want to do music. I feel like they don't care about what I want." "I understand," I said. "You should follow your passion, Max." "But they'll be so mad," he said. "Maybe it's time to stand up for yourself," I said. "You deserve to be happy." Things got worse between Max and our parents. When they found out he enrolled in a performing arts school, they were furious. I came home one day to find them yelling at him. "You're throwing your life away," my dad shouted. "No, I'm doing what I love," Max shouted back. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. "This isn't fair," I yelled. "He should be able to choose his own path." "Stay out of this, Lily," my dad snapped. That argument made the distance between us even bigger. Max stood up for himself, but it was clear our parents' control over us was too much. It was a turning point for both of us. As I continued living with Nancy, I found new hope. She became my support, always reminding me of my worth. Her apartment, though small, felt like a home. It was so different from the cold and demanding environment I had left behind. "Lily, you're going to be a doctor one day, I just know it," Nancy would always say while helping me with my studies. "You have the heart for it." Her belief in me gave me the motivation I needed. I worked hard at school, wanting to prove myself. It became a place where I could forget about my painful childhood. I focused on getting good grades, not just for myself, but to show my parents I was capable of something great. As I was doing well in school, I couldn't stop worrying about Max. He was still living with our parents, and I knew he was struggling. One day, I called him. "Hey, how's everything going?" I asked, trying to sound upbeat. "It's the same," he replied, his voice filled with frustration. "Mom and Dad still think I'll change my mind and go to law school like them." "You won't," I said confidently. "You're way too talented for that. You need to follow what makes you happy." "I know, but it's tough with them pushing me," he said. "I wish I could get away like you did." "Maybe you can," I suggested. "Why don't you come stay with me and Nancy for a while? It might help you figure things out." "Yeah, maybe," he said, but I could tell he wasn't sure. Months passed, and my hard work paid off. I graduated high school with honors and earned a scholarship to a great university. When I got my acceptance letter, I couldn't contain my excitement. "I did it, Nancy. I'm going to be a doctor." Nancy hugged me, tears of joy in her eyes. "I always knew you could do it, Lily. You deserve this." But even though I was happy, I was worried. I knew my parents wouldn't be as thrilled as Nancy was, and sure enough, when I called to tell them, their response wasn't as excited as I'd hoped. "That's nice, Lily," my dad said, his voice flat, "but remember, medical school is hard. You have to be perfect." "Why can't you just be proud of her?" Nancy asked, frustrated. "She's worked so hard for this." They didn't say anything else, and their silence stung. But I refused to let their lack of enthusiasm take away from my moment. As I started medical school, I threw myself into my studies. It was tough, but I loved it. I felt excited to learn and faced every challenge with determination. During late nights of studying, Max would text me updates about his music. Just finished another song, he texted one night. It's about breaking free from expectations. Can't wait to hear it, I replied, proud of him. I hoped he would find the courage to follow his passion. As time passed, my parents reached out again, but their message felt insincere. They emailed me, suggesting I should consider law school instead and offered to help with tuition. Lily, think about what a law degree could mean for your future, they wrote. I was furious. I don't want to be a lawyer, I shouted at my computer. I'm going to be a doctor. Nancy found me like that one afternoon. What's wrong? She asked, concerned. They keep pushing me to do what they want, I said, frustrated. It's like they can't accept me for who I really am. Lily, you're strong, Nancy said softly. Look how far you've come, don't let them hold you back. Her words reminded me of my true purpose. I was determined to leave behind my past and follow my passion for helping children. As I dived deeper into my studies, I found a sense of purpose and belonging that I'd never known before, but the memories of my childhood still haunted me. I had physically escaped, but emotionally, the scars remained. I couldn't shake the feeling that my parents would never truly accept me. Still, I pressed on, encouraged by Nancy's love and support, and driven by the hope of building a better future. Little did I know, the real challenge was just around the corner, and the struggle for their acceptance would become even more complicated. As I continued through medical school, I felt like I was becoming who I was meant to be. Helping children was my calling, and I was more determined than ever. I had made friends who shared my dreams, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged. But my parents' presence still weighed heavily on me. They sent occasional emails, reminding me of their expectations and suggesting I consider law school. Each message triggered old feelings of anger, but I had learned to push those emotions aside. One evening, as I was studying for an exam, my phone buzzed with a message from Max. Can we talk? I need to figure things out. I immediately felt concerned. Of course, come over, I replied, eager to support him. When he arrived, he seemed even more stressed than usual. I can't take it anymore, Lily. Mom and Dad are relentless, he confessed, running his hand through his hair. They think I'm wasting my life with music. You know that's not true, I reassured him. You have so much talent, and you deserve to follow your passion. I know, but every time I try to talk to them, it's like I'm talking to a wall, he said, frustration evident in his voice. They just don't get it. As we spoke, I could see the pain in his eyes. I understood exactly how he felt. I had been through the same battles, and I knew how suffocating it could be. Maybe it's time to stand up to them, I suggested. You deserve to be happy. Max nodded slowly, but I could tell he was still unsure. I don't want to lose them completely, he said. Sometimes, you have to stand up for yourself, I replied. I had to do it too. It's hard, but it's the right thing to do. Days turned into weeks, and as I continued my studies, I knew I would have to face my parents eventually. Then one evening, I got a call from them. We'd like to have a family dinner, my mom said. It's important. I felt a knot in my stomach. Okay, I replied, trying to stay calm. The dinner was scheduled for a few days later. As the day approached, I felt a mix of nervousness and hope. Part of me wanted to believe they were ready to make peace, but another part of me was bracing for another disappointment. When the day came, I arrived early at the restaurant, my heart racing. When my parents walked in, they looked as imposing as ever. We sat down, and the tension in the air was palpable. Thank you for coming, my mom began, her voice cold. We wanted to talk about our family and our future. Okay, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I've been thinking, my dad said, leaning forward, about your education and your future. We think it's time for you to consider law school. My heart sank. I've told you before, Dad, I want to be a doctor. That's my passion, I replied firmly. Passion doesn't pay the bills, he snapped, his tone sharp. You need to think practically. Practicality isn't everything, I shot back, feeling anger rise. I've worked so hard to get where I am, and I won't let you push me into a career I don't want. The tension in the restaurant grew as people around us noticed our heated exchange. Lily, we only want what's best for you, my mom said, her voice trembling slightly. No, you're not listening. You've never listened, I yelled, unable to hold back my emotions. You've spent my whole life judging me based on grades and achievements. I'm done. Just then, Max walked into the restaurant, sensing the tension. He saw me and rushed over. What's going on? He asked, his face full of concern. Just a family discussion, my dad said dismissively, but it was clear the situation had escalated. Family? This doesn't look like family, Max said, glaring at our parents. You can't keep doing this to her, to us. What do you know about family? My mom snapped. More than you think, Max shouted, stepping closer to me. Lily deserves support, not judgment. We both do. At that moment, everything I had been holding in broke free. I realized I had spent so many years trying to earn their love and approval, only to find that their expectations would never be enough. Enough, I shouted, my voice shaking with the weight of years of pent-up emotion. I'm done trying to live up to your standards. I'm finally happy, and I refuse to let you take that away from me. The restaurant fell silent. I could feel the weight of every eye on us. The raw vulnerability of the moment hit me like a wave, and I realized, for the first time, that I was truly breaking free. I had laid bare the pain, the rejection, and the years of struggling for validation. I was reclaiming my life, but I knew deep down that this confrontation was only the beginning. The battle for my identity, my happiness, and my future was far from over. The silence lingered in the air as I locked eyes with my parents. Max stood by my side, his presence a grounding force. I could see the shock in their eyes, but there was no turning back now. Lily, this isn't how you should talk to us, my father said, his voice unsteady. Why not? I shot back, my anger still bubbling beneath the surface. I've spent my whole life trying to please you, and all it's done is make me feel worthless. I'm not a disappointment, and I'm not going to keep living to fulfill your expectations. I'm doing what I love. Max turned to face them, his expression firm and unwavering. You need to realize that forcing us into careers we don't want isn't love, it's control. My mother, always so certain, seemed momentarily disarmed. We thought we were doing what was best for you, she said quietly, the pain in her voice palpable. Best for us, or best for you? I replied, my words sharp but true. You've never really seen us for who we are, you only see what you want us to be. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I was no longer that frightened little girl who needed to earn her parents' love. I was an adult, a woman with a dream of becoming a pediatrician, and I was ready to stand up for myself and for Max. Enough of this, I declared firmly. I won't let you dictate my future any longer. I'm pursuing my dream, and nothing you say can change that. I am going to be a pediatrician, and I'm going to help children. That's my path. Tears welled in my mother's eyes as she seemed to grasp the depth of what I was saying. I just wanted you both to have secure futures, she whispered, the hurt in her voice unmistakable. I thought that would make you happy. Happiness isn't about a title or a paycheck, Max said softly. It's about being true to who we are. I want to make music, and Lily wants to help children. That's what will make us happy. For the first time, there was a pause. The weight of the moment hung in the air as I felt a sense of liberation. I had spoken my truth, and it was like a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. Maybe we've been too focused on our own idea of success, Mr. Hayes admitted, his voice tinged with regret. We didn't mean to push you away. I could see the sincerity in their eyes, but I also knew that healing wouldn't come overnight. It's going to take time, I said, my voice steady but resolute. It'll take time for me to trust you again, but I'm willing to try. If you are? My mother nodded, her face softening. We want to support you, Lily, we really do. Can we start over? Max and I exchanged a glance, and I felt a glimmer of hope. Let's take it one step at a time, I replied. We've got a lot to work through, but we can try. As we left the restaurant, the weight that had burdened me for so long seemed to lift. The confrontation hadn't been easy, but it had opened the door to something new, a possibility for understanding, for growth, and for a relationship based on unconditional love. My parents were starting to realize the importance of that. In the weeks that followed, we worked to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't an overnight transformation, old habits and old expectations were hard to break, but my parents made a genuine effort to show their support. They came to my medical school events, and for the first time, I felt like they were really trying to understand why I had chosen this path. Meanwhile, Max continued to pursue his music, playing at local gigs and finding his own rhythm. I admired his courage and felt proud of him for refusing to compromise on his dreams. Eventually, Nancy, Max, and I decided to open a community center for children, a place where kids could explore their passions just like we had fought for ours. The opening day was a moment of triumph, and as I stood there, surrounded by smiling faces, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It was a far cry from the scared little girl I used to be. Now, I was a woman who had fought for her dreams, for her family, and for a future where we could all be our authentic selves. My journey had taught me that love isn't about meeting others' expectations, it's about supporting one another in our true selves, and that, I knew, was a lesson worth sharing.